Hey, saw Birds of Prey this weekend. If you don't know what it is, it's the latest film from Warner Brothers and DC, who have been on a little bit of a hot streak lately in terms of its filmmaking quality. I really liked Aquaman. Maybe not for the intentions that movie has, but it was still a very enjoyable time. Enjoyed Wonder Woman for the most part. But DC really seems to have, at the very least, turned it around from the Suicide Squad and Batman v Superman days, because this is just another solid movie in their lineup now. We'll start off with the positives. Action choreography. They got the same team that helped do John Wick work on this movie, and you can really tell. I think how the action is shot is a little bit on the weaker end. It's sometimes, at least for me, was hard to follow the action or really get super invested in what was going on, because it tended to switch in between POV, and just personally for me, I prefer action that's a little bit more streamlined rather than bouncing all over the place, if that makes sense. But even still, there are a lot of great wide shots, a lot of great action set pieces and scenes. The first real chase scene of the movie is really nice, really fun. And additionally, each and every character has their sort of moment to shine in order to get these really cool looking shots. Two people who really stand out in that department is Margot Robbie and Jernee Smollett-Bell. Both do an incredible job. They have these very powerful presences whenever an action scene is going on, and the choreography they pull off really stands out for those actors. Additionally, in the acting department, I really thought that all the actors portrayed their characters well. The two standouts for me were Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Margot Robbie. For Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I don't know, she just has this great energy throughout the entire film, even though she's in it for probably the least amount of time compared to the other characters. But when she's on screen, she sort of captures the scene in the same way that Ewan McGregor does. As for Margot Robbie, I thought she really did a great job sort of going and melding into the role of Harley Quinn. It really feels like she's taken over this character in a really good way, and I'm excited to see what she does later with it. I think her character does get a little bit annoying, but that's only through overuse during the movie. I don't think that's really on the actor herself. Additionally, this sort of outing really showed me that what was going on in Suicide Squad, what I really didn't like about Harley Quinn and Margot Robbie's acting in that movie, it was more down to the direction than anything else, because in this one she's tuned in a lot more to the character, and we're not playing the same kind of accent roulette we were during Suicide Squad. So that was just an additive to the experience. On one last positive note, and more of a funny one, Captain Boomerang is the only other character who seems to have survived the culling that DC did with post-Suicide Squad extended universe. So, I feel like I'm the only person who was like, dude, it's Captain Boomerang, let's go. But to me, that was just fun. It was fun to see. It did get a little bit like, hey, I know that thing, and I clapped, but even still, I thought of all the people they could have kept around to put in as a little Easter egg cameo sort of thing, I can't believe they did it with Captain Boomerang, my guy. That's all I gotta say. Moving on to negatives, editing. This last month has been a real rough month, in my opinion, for editing. Between this and The Gentleman, both these movies sort of suffer from the same thing, where I understand what they were going with that editing, with that sort of frantic style, but it didn't really lend that well to the story. The editing just sort of causes things to bounce around, and you can't really focus on just one thing. Now, stylistically, there have been some arguments saying, like, well, that's sort of reflective of Harley Quinn herself. She's the one telling the story. And from a creative decision, I kind of understand that, but still, it does lead to the detriment of the viewing experience, just as a result of focus being the main issue. You can't focus on one specific thing for long enough to really invest yourself in that thing. And that editing sort of goes into the story structure as well. I think the story structure sort of weakens the narrative. A lot of people have said, like, oh, the narrative was already weak. It's just a simple girl pickpockets thing, and we've seen it a million times. But even still, I kind of like that simple narrative. I wish we could go back more to it, and especially in superhero movies. At the end of the day, it's literally a kid pickpockets someone, and then that's the plot. and then we deal with the consequences. And we've sort of been missing those sort of low-level situations in superhero movies basically since the start of this sort of new renaissance. And it was just sort of nice to see that story play out, and that's just it. Now, of course, the problem is like I was saying, story structure. You have a lot of these instances where the movie is telling you the story and then it interrupts because it's a story being told by Harley Quinn. So she's coming in here and she's like, oh, you don't know what this thing is. I got to explain this thing. And there's a lot of going back, stopping the narrative. It breaks up the flow. It makes it feel really scattershot. And additionally, then in order to use that story structure, have to rely on a lot of Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie hamming it up in voiceover. And at times it works in the movie. I think the intro sequence, it kind of worked. I was like, all right, I see where they're going with this. This is pretty cute. This is pretty fun. But like, you know, once you're an hour in, you're like, okay, we need to cool it a little bit on Margot Robbie and Harley Quinn, just constantly explaining to us everything that's going on. It's a real show don't tell issue. When the movie can show, it ended up instead deciding to tell. Those were the main complaints about the movie, though. So we'll be moving on to themes. The first major theme is really power and sort of power structures, especially kind of along gender lines. And I think it handles it really well. You know, it just sort of sets up, hey, all these four people, the main thing these four people have in common is that they got screwed over by a guy in their life. Whether that be, you know, the Joker, whether that be Montoya's boss, whether that be etc., etc. The theme of power is really seen throughout the movie. You know, you see it in how the characters interact with each other, how the characters interact with our tertiary characters, and sort of how these power dynamics drive our characters to do the things that they end up doing throughout the movie. Additionally, there's this weird underlying theme that could just be like a crackpot theory I'm thinking of, but I really see a lot of language in the movie reflect the idea about small business versus big corporation, with the big corporation being Black Mask's criminal empire and the small businesses being the individual operations run by each of our four main characters. And the main reason I bring this up is because the movie focuses a lot on sort of the power structure in work environments, but additionally it just focuses a lot on just jobs and occupations in general. There's a lot of focus on the struggle of, you know, striking out on one's own to start their own business in order to sort of reclaim the freedom that the sort of power dynamics in the movie keep bringing up. This power dynamic between owners and the ones who own businesses and those who work beneath them and get screwed over. It's not really like capitalist critique or anything. It's nothing like that. But it's sort of this weird thing about how almost sort of the economic downtrodden of the working class seen through the eyes of these four characters, as all four of them sort of get screwed over by the power dynamics in their original quote-unquote work environment. But then again, maybe I'm just crazy, which is a very, very likely possibility. Yeah, but anyway, Birds of Prey, pretty solid. 5 birds out of 10. That's what I'll give it. I can't really give it any higher just because of the negatives that really sort of bothered me throughout the movie. The last third is probably those negatives sort of go away, but also some of those positives go away as it sort of devolves into your cookie cutter beat the bad guys fight. But other than that, yeah, I think that's everything. Thanks for watching.